So my name is Mike Daly. I work at Insomniac Games, and I'm the lead designer on Stormland. Stormland's an action-adventure game set in an exotic open world where we set out to create a game where you could traverse anywhere, and behind that traversal is a deep, rich world that just gives you tons of stuff to do time and again. One of our goals for co-op was not to separate any part of the experience based off of whether you were playing by yourself or playing with a friend. So throughout the entire story campaign and throughout the entire cycling world, players can drop in and drop out at any time. They don't lose their progression. You don't have to worry about whether the stuff that you've collected matters. Basically, we're trying to be as friendly and as generous as possible, and having a very sort of low frictionless barrier to having you play with a friend. Yeah, so if you start from the beginning of the game with a friend, it doesn't matter sort of who invites who, you're both gonna progress, like all the progression of that is gonna be kept. But if somebody's already been playing the game, they invite you and you're a new player, you can still join them wherever they're at, and you'll get to sort of keep the materials and the currency that you've accumulated there. But if you were to go back to playing single player, you still go through the whole story on your own, at your own pace. So really the game is sort of as generous as it can be as far as who gets to play with who when, with the only caveat being like, we don't want to cause you to miss out on things in the main story campaign that you otherwise would have. Yeah, so the demos we've made so far give everybody a pretty good idea of like what the moment-to-moment gameplay and the interactions of traversal and combat are. But what you don't get a great sense of that plays out over a much longer period of time is what the structure of your goals are. So you usually have several missions available to you at any point in time. So you can go and kind of chase what interests you, and a lot of these can be worked on in parallel as well. So you get to do sort of a variety of things, and the whole idea is to give you a reason and a chance to explore different parts of the world and to sort of like utilize the whole gamut of actions you can take. On top of those sort of basic missions that you can always do, there is sort of your medium-term goal of you have this big cloudscape that has all these things to find and do in it, but ultimately you're trying to find enough stuff and upgrade your body and your weapons and your abilities enough to be capable of moving to a higher strata in the Stormland, where it's more difficult, you're closer to the heart of the enemy forces. And so sort of the overarching mission of that area is to do what you need to do to unlock the portal to the next realm. So once you have done that mission, which is a little bit more involved than the rest and a little bit more challenging, you're basically sent off to a whole new level of the Stormland, where things are tougher, where the resources are different, where you're going to need to find and buy more and better weapons and abilities and upgrades to keep going. And the biome's different, the atmosphere is different. There are new realm-specific missions there. So that structure lets you ascend through a few of the strata, and that all is working towards the goal of taking on Terminus. That's the highest layer of the Stormland in the stratosphere, where the enemies have sort of their main base. So you're trying to get as strong as you can to do this raid and go on a mission to sabotage their infrastructure. And once you've done that, you've sort of reached, you know, the power ceiling of your character and the challenge ceiling that's available in that cycle. So you accomplish that, and at that point, what we do is we take this concept of like prestiging your character that you can see in a couple other progression-based games, and we let you start over in lockstep with the world transitioning to a whole new layout. So you have a fresh character with a wider breadth of build options than you had before and a higher ceiling, and then you get to sort of experience that power growth through each of the strata over again, sort of tuning it to the conditions of the current cycle. So that's sort of the broad progression structure as you work through from raid to raid in ever escalating challenge levels. The reasoning behind that is like, we love that feeling of starting fresh and having a challenging area to be in, and sort of getting your foothold, finding enough stuff to like turn the corner and really master it. And that's when you can like move on to the next area and do that again. That feeling of like fast progression we know feels good and feels rewarding, but ultimately, you know, there's a ceiling to it. So what we wanted to do with this game is give you a good reason to like keep doing that, but that felt best when it was aligned with a new world to explore. Like you want to start fresh and experience that with all new content. You want to do the exact same things again. And the way that is experienced best is if you can see that new, fresh world with new places to explore and secrets to find and sort of lore to discover in lockstep with everybody else in the community. Because these discoveries are more exciting when you can share them and talk about them with other people. You can talk with people about, you know, I am looking for this type of thing, can you help me find it? Or you can share, you found this type of thing, like check it out. So keeping everybody in sync was important to us because it creates that sort of shared communal experience. It's like being there at the launch of a game every week, and we want to try and create that feeling on an ongoing basis. So we lined up the progression system with this sort of like rollover and content so that everybody got to sort of like have that experience of fresh discovery and that experience of starting a new, fresh build on that new world and having a whole community around them to experience it at the same time. From the very beginning, we wanted a game that you could have fun playing for a really long time. So when we were making our content, we intentionally designed it to be sort of as dynamic as possible. So from day one on each island we were crafting, like yes, we were handcrafting layouts, but we were crafting them in such a way that they could be mixed and matched to achieve variety through permutations. So we have a huge body of islands and a huge body of cloud layouts that let us create like basically an infinite number of new worlds that all still feel handcrafted. That being said, we don't want players to feel like they have missed out on something permanently. So after a certain amount of time, basically enough time that if you stick with the game, you're probably not going to remember having done this before. We're going to loop back around and say like, if you missed this week or you missed some of the parts of this week or you were on a different strata, you can come back and play that again. And so the game sort of like goes through loops of its cycles. So whenever you load into the game, you start in the garage down in your base camp. And in that garage, you have a community screen that more or less says, all right, here's what up right now. There's a big countdown clock to say, here's how much time's left in the current cycle. There's a section that's like, okay, here are the conditions of the current cycle. You know, you don't know how they're going to change in the next week. There's a section that says, here is sort of like the stuff that's unique to this cycle that you're still looking out for. So that's how you know. And then when a cycle is rolled over since the last time you've played, you further get like a little introduction screen that says, all right, you know, here's what's different. And if you've reset your character, what new stuff's available to you. So Stormland comes out on November 14th at $39.99 for Oculus Rift.